Ahoj všichni, it's Jen from Dream Prague, the channel where I share insights, big and small, about what it's like to be a foreigner in Prague, Czech Republic. One of the things you learn quickly when you move to this country, or really to any country, is that you're gonna encounter some problems that put you at the mercy of the natives. Most often this happens at government offices when you're dealing with your visa or social security payments or taxes, but it can also happen in the private sector, in restaurants, shops, etc. And one of the most valuable skills you can acquire early on is to put aside your own way of doing things and accept the local way of doing things. I had an experience last week that really drove this point home, and so I thought I'd share it with you, in case you too ever found yourself at the mercy of a Czech bureaucrat. And it wasn't me who had the encounter, but a poor, desperate Englishman. So last week, I jumped on a quick flight to London to meet my sister who was visiting from San Francisco, and it was exactly what the two of us needed after 2 years of pandemia. Prosecco in the park, lots of sisterly gossip, and a new refreshing outlook on some of the ways in which life in Prague is not the norm, but its own unique experience. But the story I want to share with you today didn't happen in a London pub, but rather in the Prague airport before I even got on the flight. So I had purchased one of those super cheap flights to London on a low-cost carrier, which I immediately regretted when I realized it was going to cost me more than my 900 crown flight to Stansted just to take the train from Stansted to the center of London. Consider this a bonus tip. It's never worth flying to Stansted. I regretted my cheap flight even more the day of my flight when I had a problem checking in online. Now, this has happened to me a few times before with the same airline. I couldn't check in online, and so I had to pay an extra 20 euros at the airport just to check in person. Now, 20 euros isn't much, but it's the principle of the thing, you know? It's not a pleasant way to start your trip. So I get to the airport, and I wait in the check-in line along with all the other schlubs who didn't check in online for one reason or another. And the guy in front of me is a 30-something English guy, and he tells the airline representative that unfortunately his phone data wasn't working, and so he couldn't check in. And once he arrived at the airport and could use the airport Wi-Fi, he tried to check in, but it was too late because you have to check in earlier than 2 hours before the flight. And so he was unable to download his boarding pass. And the airline representative, a Czech gentleman, tells him that the fee to check in at the airport is 1,600 crowns. What? Now I hear this and I immediately start internally losing my mind for the Englishman, but also for myself because my cheap ticket is getting more and more expensive. And this Englishman, he's so very English, so he doesn't get angry. Or at least he doesn't show that he's angry. Very calmly, he says to the airline representative, "Well, sir, that's just outrageous, don't you think? I mean, you agree with me, right? Just because I had data issues with my phone, your airline wants me to almost double the cost of the flight just to check in? I mean, that's highway robbery, don't you think? It's very unfair." And then he pauses and says, "Sir, I really did try to check in, so do you think you can make an exception for me? Surely you see how unfair your system is." This is the moment of the culture clash between English logic and Czech customer service. It is at this moment that I know that this poor Englishman is doomed. Because I know from experience that this is not the way to approach a Czech person, especially one who has any modicum of power. So first, let's contrast his English approach with a typical American approach to solving this problem. In this situation, an American asked to speak to the manager. Americans like to throw our weight around a bit. We don't care if our case is fair or unfair. We are the customer and we are always right. It's obnoxious, I know, but this is how we get things done. I'm generalizing, but I say that this approach is true more often than not. But I found this Englishman's approach fascinating. He wasn't being obnoxious like a pushy American might be, but he would not let up. And the people in line were getting impatient because he simply refused to pay the 1,600 crowns. He started to appeal to the airline representative's sense of justice, to his sense of fairness, because in his civilized world, context matters and good intentions matter. He wasn't disregarding the rules, he just hadn't succeeded at following the rules, and it was unfair to punish him for that. He even appealed to the airline's representative's sympathy with a hypothetical situation. Sir, you know I can afford to pay this fee, but think of a father with 2 small children who forgot to check in because he was managing his children, and now he cannot afford to get them all boarding passes to fly home. That just doesn't seem fair. Don't you agree? Wouldn't you agree that this is just a terribly unjust situation? And I'm just sitting there in line behind him, so irritated, suppressing every fiber of my being that is dying to call the manager, because I too am outraged. I too don't want to spend 1,600 crowns on the first day of my vacation for something that should be included in the price of a ticket. But I've also learned that appealing to justice or fairness or reason is not the way to get a Czech person to do what you want. Last year, I got some of the most valuable advice in the comment section of one of my videos. Truly, my comment section is excellent for advice. And this commenter told me that when dealing with a Czech bureaucrat, or in this case, a Czech airline representative, you can't convince them that their system is screwed up and makes no sense. That will only harden them. They will shrug their shoulders because fair to them is that everyone should suffer equally. Don't tell them that their system is illogical. Don't tell them that it's antiquated and unreasonable. Deep down, I think they all know that. But they've devoted their career to enforcing those unreasonable rules. It's like pointing out that their very existence is pointless. So don't do that. In order to get them on your side, you have to convince them that the mistake or the problem, whatever it is, was entirely your fault, and that they are your only hope. So back to our Englishman. This guy is just really taking too much time, and his approach is not working. And I just want to pay my 1,600 crowns and start my darn vacation. So in front of the airline representative, I tap the Englishman on the shoulder and say, "Sir, I know this is terribly unfair, but this very airline has done this to me in Amsterdam and in Romania, and I still haven't learned my lesson. I too will have to pay 1,600 crowns. And I agree, it's truly outrageous. But it is not the fault of this airline representative. He's doing the best he can. It's not possible for him to waive your fee, even though it's highway robbery. We're all going to get charged, and maybe next time we'll have to fly with a different airline." And then I stare deeply into my phone because I don't want to debate this any further. I want him out of my line and I want to get moving. So the man finally pays and we all move up one place in line. Finally, I get to the counter. And to the same airline representative, I say, "Dobrý den. I'm very sorry, but I couldn't manage to check in online. It was probably my fault. I couldn't figure out the application. And then it was too late to check in. Can you help me?" To be quite honest, in my head, I'm thinking this is 100% the airline's fault because their application didn't work properly. My inner American wants to summon the manager and the COO and the UX designer of the application and yell at them. But I'm not telling this guy that. I'm being, let's say, a little humbler than I might have been back in America. And so the guy looks at me, types something on his keyboard, prints me a boarding pass, and wishes me a good flight. And I did not pay a thing. Now, I'm not saying that I had some magic approach. Maybe our situations with our tickets were different. But I can't help but think that my commenter was 100% correct on how to deal with Czech people from whom you need a little charity. As much as the Englishman's appeal to fairness or logic might work in Cambridge, it does not work in the Czech Republic. The system is the system, and the system doesn't care your opinion of it. In the US, I can definitely throw my weight around, with a smile of course, and find some top manager who will give me what I want, because in America, the customer is always right. In the Czech Republic, the customer is not only not always right, but is often at the mercy of the bureaucrat or the shopkeeper, and don't you forget it. This is just one anecdote, and I'm definitely generalizing cultural traits here. But why not take a little of what I've learned and put it to use the next time you're at the mercy of a Czech? Have you had a similar experience in the Czech Republic or another country where your culture clash just completely prevented you from getting what you needed or wanted? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, budget airlines are a scam. They're going to get your money on the front end or make you pay for it on the back end. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every week when I make a new video. Tak, uvidíme se příští týden. Ahoj.